Welcome back. This is Rudy Knapp and Legacy Build Your Kingdom. I am back, and this is the beginning of January. And as we kind of left off, we're still in this concept of relationships and how we're doing this whole series based on how can we build ourselves up in these relationships and how can we build our relationships up? How are we looking at ourselves in order to benefit our partners and benefit our own communication and our own way in which we provide for this relationship. So we continue this series on. We're still sitting in this concept of understanding endless effort comes to play. That's the foundation, that's the most important. That is something that we want to make sure that when we're standing here looking at a relationship, we know that it's going to take work, it's going to take effort, it's going to be something that we should want to give to our partner and to our relationship. So this isn't just about our partner, but it is also about building something together as a unit, as one. And if you're the only one that's providing, well, then there's a problem here. So we want to make sure that when we start talking about all these components of what builds a great relationship, and we'll kind of wrap it all up probably next week with all of my aspect of what I believe creates the entire concept of a relationship. But we started off by talking about this endless effort and how important it is. It's a foundation. And then that leads into communication. We mentioned how communication can be anything. We could give you the middle finger, and that's communication. So we don't want to just say communication. We always want to add with understanding. So, with the intent of understanding, I am going to communicate to you with the intent of you understanding what my point is and how I feel and what I want from this relationship. You're going to listen, or you're an active listener with the intent of understanding, not with a shutdown, or not with I'm right, you're wrong, not with this concept of saying, hey, I don't care what your perspective is, I'm not changing mine. And again, it goes back to this concept of perspective. If we are in this relationship together, that is one. So if I'm failing, you're failing. And if you're failing, I'm failing. So we're both failing together then. So this is an active unit to work towards us being successful and happy and at peace and all the things we want out of a relationship. So again, we talked about endless effort, we talked about communication with understanding. We continued on and we had this conversation about our relationship with Jesus and how important it is to have a relationship with God in order for us to become whole and be able to provide in this relationship for our partners. We have to have a relationship with Jesus. We got to have this concept of understanding, who we are and what we stand for and what our purpose is. And that all goes back to the spiritual uplift, loving God, and then also understanding what our purpose is. And then we continued on last week and we talked about love languages. And if we understand what our own love languages are, we can communicate them to our partner, and our partner knowing their love languages is even more important because that's our job. In a relationship, it's our job to provide for them and their job to provide for us. So this is a concept that I think people are missing. You have multiple love languages. You might have some that are more apparent than others. You need to know your partner. This is also called having some sort of empathy for your partner, having some sort of understanding of your partner, having some sort of idea that you can listen to what their needs are and putting their feelings before your own. I've always talked about that idea. If you understand that concept, I don't feel fulfilled until you feel fulfilled, then I'm failing and I don't want to fail. So again, endless effort, communication with understanding, what's your relationship with God, the concept of love languages and knowing your partner's love language and knowing your love language, communicating that. Those are huge parts of this. When we move on to today, we're going to do this a little bit different. I'm going to talk about men versus women and how they try to find connection. Remember, let's do a little disclaimer here. I don't want anyone to get upset. I know there's women that listen to, I know that family members listen to, I know there's certain friends that listen to. There's nobody that, I'm coming from a man's perspective here. I'm trying to be as open as possible in what I see throughout my experiences, but also what I see in general. And this is a generalization, so I know that that doesn't apply to everyone. But I also know that, let's be real. Like, I'm as real as it gets. I'm going to tell you what I feel. I'm going to tell you straight out. I'm not going to hold back things. I'm somebody that will approach you. I'm not worried about confrontation. I don't want confrontation, but I'm not worried about it because I know who I am and I'm confident in myself. I want people to be that way. That's why I promote my business and this concept of life coaching. So legacy coaching, buildyourkingdom.com, go visit it, go check it out, see if it's for you. Again, still trying to offer a special to those top members that come out and want to get some help here in the new year. This isn't just about getting physically fit. I know a lot of people come to me about getting physically fit, and that's great. I love that. It's a compliment to me that people might see that I put in work and there's discipline. But the idea is we can work on that. But before you can work on physical fitness, and I think everyone misses this point that seems to not get it right. All the people that decide to start January 1st every year, or all the people that decide to start on Monday every week, what they're missing is one thing. You have to change your mindset. You have to change how you think. You have to change the narrative you're creating or contain it. We all have a narrative. I've talked about this a year ago in the podcast. We create our own narratives, and this all relates to relationships as well. And when these narratives get out of control, and when we create them, and then we use them as weapons against our partners, and I'm guilty of it myself. I know there's some things that I'm working on, but this is where we lose our minds, and then we lose our opportunity for change. We have to sit back and we want to get our minds right before we can actually make any change, whether it's physical change, like some people come to me for, or change in their career, or change in their relationship, or change in the relationship with God. So I'm going to say this again, just quick plug for my business if you are interested. Come to me, get this help, because if you think that you can just get a diet plan or you could just get a workout plan and you're going to make it right, believe me, ask yourself what happened the last 30, 40 years of your life. Did it work for you then? Did it work for the last 20 years of your life? Did it work for you the last 10 years? No offense, but guess what? It didn't work for me for a long period of time either, until I decided to change the way that I think. So anyone that knows me, anyone knows where I've come from, knows my past and who I am, you know that there is a difference in the commitment, there's a difference in the discipline, in the consistency from me because of the way I think versus the way others might. And I'm not trying to boast myself over that. I'm trying to make you understand this concept of I can help you with those mental changes that will lead to those physical changes. I can help you with the physical things, but they first come from the mental. So please tell whoever it is, whoever is struggling, whoever needs help, whoever says, I want to start, or I want to lose weight, or I want to get my mind right, or I feel depressed, or I'm questioning God, or the concept of I'm struggling in my relationship. I don't want to get divorced. I don't want to lose this person. Come to me. Let's have a conversation. I've experienced it all. I promise you. Every single one of those things. And I've also fought through, and I've also been successful, and I've been failing at some things. And I know the changes that need to be made. I also know that I am making them, and I'm actively doing this every single day. I also know that it's difficult. So I'm there with you. I'm sympathetic to you, but I'm also there to push you to be somebody that can really understand, but also push you to what you are capable of doing. So I'm going to stop that plug there for my coaching business. Again, Legacy Coaching, buildyourkingdom.com. Check it out, or reach out to me, my phone number, or email. You can always check that out. Those are things. And the reason I brought that whole thing up, and I didn't mean to go on a rant there, but the idea is I see it over and over again. This is January and everybody does, and it's fine. Start in January. Have goals. That's always a great thing. That's understandable. But what are you actually doing to step forward? Reaching out to me, that's a step forward. Starting a program, that's a step forward. So check it out, reach forward. I'm open. I have some time right now. It's great. I have some openings in my clients. It's awesome. Reach for it. But this relates to relationships, and because until you change that narrative, until you change your mindset and how you're going to approach things, until we talked about a few things, look in the mirror at yourself. Be honest with yourself. Stop sugarcoating. Stop trying to make yourself feel better. Hit that wall where you have to take accountability for what you are and what your actions are and how you've been. When you start doing that, changes will start being made. You will start understanding that there is no more hiding. And so when we get to this relationship talk, men versus women, again, I made this disclaimer for this reason only. I don't want to see a backlash from people because they're misinterpreting. You can disagree with me all you want. You can disagree with my perspective on men and my perspective on women. But what I want you to really do is keep an open mind to it so that you can start seeing maybe this is what the opposite sex thinks. Whether you're a man listening to what women are and maybe it helps you in your relationship, or women listening to what men think, maybe it helps you in your relationship, even in the dating world. And we'll talk about that too, because that opens the door to maybe how you approach your next date that you go on or the next time you meet somebody. So let's get to it. Men versus women, finding connection. I think that we're going to assume in this conversation, instead of assuming that, people are dating just for pleasure, physical pleasure, we'll assume that this is a concept of men and women that are stepping into a relationship that want an actual relationship and to be together. If that's the case, then we'll talk about this way. I mean, there's obviously other ways in which people are in relationships, but I don't want to hold on to that. And that's a whole nother conversation. But let's talk about men versus women. I'm going to start off by saying this. I'm going to talk a little bit about perspective here, but then I'm also going to talk about certain scenarios or conversations I've come across that are controversial and what people might think. Let's just throw them out there and see if you have some truth to it, or if you don't, what I believe in and what I don't believe in. So it's kind of a little different than what I would normally do, but I want to make sure we throw out like four major points. And this is common what people think, what people view men versus women. And then you can judge for yourself, but you can also listen to some of the comments that I might have that give you some perspective. So one of the first things I'm going to talk about is just this idea of men and women in approaching to finding a connection. I believe in my heart, knowing I'm a man, I'll talk about that perspective first. And what I think most men feel is that when men walk into trying to date or trying to find this connection with somebody, a lot of times what happens is they are looking for a physical connection first before an emotional connection. Now, vice versa, women, I believe, walk into a relationship or walk into a date trying to find an emotional connection before a physical connection. Now, I know what most people think right away. The first thought is, well, men just want to sleep with women, and throw that idea out the door. I'm not saying that's not true, because I believe men do love physical, love sex. I believe women love sex as well. I mean, I don't think that's something that we're going to deny. I think people love pleasure. But the concept becomes is, what do they mean by physical connection before emotional connection? And what do I mean by emotional connection before physical? Well, men are looking for that feeling of being needed or wanted or desired. So when they walk into a date and they're having this conversation, and I'll speak for myself, but I also speak for men in general that I know, we're looking for something from that partner that's sitting there. Let's say you're on a coffee date, let's say you're out at a bar, whatever the case is, you meet somehow at dinner, whatever the case is, you are having conversation with someone, but you're also looking to see, are they interested in you? And I think that's what's on most men's mind. Are they interested? Do they like me? Or is there going to be another date? Or if the man doesn't like the woman, then you can see the immediate disinterest, or not giving the effort. You see that happen a lot. But here's the thing. What I mean by physical touch, or physical connection, I should say, is there eye contact? Is there laughing or playing, playful banter? Is there laughing at your jokes? Is there reaching out and touching your arm? Is there some way in which you made some connection to show that, hey, this person might want me, they might like me, that maybe they want this to continue on? And I think that's underestimated by women. A little bit of effort to show that you actually are interested goes a long way for men. So women, if you're listening to this, I hope that you take some of that and say, like, if I'm actually interested and I'm having this conversation, and as the time goes on, we're having these conversations and we're getting to know each other, have some sort of initiation of understanding that you're showing them that you're interested at some point. Whether it's a compliment for them, or a slight touch of the hand, or a laugh at their joke, and whatever playful manner you are. Even at the end of the date, a hug goodbye, a kiss goodbye, whatever the case is, some sort of physical connection there, that goes a long way for men. But on the reverse side, women, I understand where you're coming from. Emotional before physical. Well, you gotta make sure that you're safe. You gotta make sure that you're secure. You gotta make sure this is someone that is compatible with you. Women believe in that concept of saying, "Hey, I'm here to see if you and I mesh, or if we coexist. Are we compatible?" And so as you have conversation, you're looking for those things. What kind of person is this? And I know this, I've had conversations many times about this, but I know that women really do want that emotional connection. As far as the dating scene goes, if you do get that emotional connection, oh yeah, we both have things in common they're looking for. We're both responsible people. We both take on responsibility. You know, this is a person that I see can provide for me, or this is a person I can see can provide safety for me. I don't want to say provide because I don't think the women are always going to be out there looking for money. There are women like that. I hope that no, none of you are one of them that is only looking to make sure you take care of me. I think everyone should be taking care of themselves. And then along with, once you get in a relationship, you take care of one another. But again, what I mean by provide for me, I mean provide emotional security, provide safety, provide physically safety for you. I think women look for that as well in men, but also men that can communicate, that you guys can laugh together, you can have fun together. It's definitely not a bad way to look at it. I applaud women for looking for that emotional connection. But what I'm trying to come to the point of is that there has to be a little bit of both. You know, it's not just physical. Don't just jump in bed. We understand that. Like, this isn't just physical. But the idea is to show that you're interested. And that can come from a physical touch from men, or for men, I should say, because they do feel differently and they approach it differently. I don't believe that all men are not emotional creatures. I believe I'm a 100% emotional person, more than probably most. But the idea is I'm also a huge physical person. I need to feel that I'm needed and wanted. And so when those things exist and you have both, and you see that someone's attracted to you, or you see that someone's giving effort towards you, and then you give that effort back and it's reciprocal, and then we get into that idea of now you're making a connection of like what you believe in your heart, your core values, your, you know, how you are as a person, how do you treat the waitress, how do you, like, these are things that people are looking for when you're dating. And so I look for it. I see how women act towards other women in that room. I see how women act towards the waitress. I see how women act towards me. I see if they're appreciative of things. I see that if they are somebody that generally cares about my well-being. Those are things that we're looking for as men. And when we get them, we want to give. And so going back to this, it's reciprocal. I think that it's really interesting to see that there's two different approaches here. But if there's a little bit of each, you see a connection happen more often. And that's kind of meet your way. You meet you halfway and you meet me halfway kind of thing. If you are having good conversation, which again is a huge part of relationships, communication with understanding this idea that I can bring something to the table, we can talk without being awkward, you're not socially awkward, you're able to have conversation, you're able to tell stories. I remember being in student teaching one year, and I got thrown in this classroom, and it was kind of not my student teaching, but it was a teaching lab, which we did a couple labs, and then we got into student teaching where you had to do a whole semester. By the way, my cooperating teacher of my student teaching was probably one of the best men I've ever met in my life, and taught me more about relationships than probably a lot of people, just because of how kind-hearted he was. The relationships I saw with him and his students, and how much people loved him, former students, coworkers, everybody that's ever come across Mr. Parker. Honestly, one of the best people I ever met. But I say this because when you start looking at this, and I come across this one guy that I got put in place with, and again, every opportunity that you see or meet somebody, you can learn from. And this man didn't really bring anything to me teaching wise, kind of threw the book at me and said, hey, go ahead and you teach this. He was a second year teacher. I don't know how I got matched up with him. And this wasn't Mr. Parker. This is a different man. He throws the book at me and he tells me, go ahead and start teaching. You're only going to learn if you just get on with it. Like, you got to do it on your own. I was only supposed to teach one lesson for like 6 weeks. I ended up teaching every day for 6 weeks. And honestly, I learned from that. Jump in the fire. Even when it's difficult, even when you're scared, jump in the fire. There's an old saying out there, somebody says, like, don't you get nervous if you're a public speaker? Aren't you nervous to talk in front of people? And I always laugh because I'm like, I was nervous as ever to get on a podcast. I'm not nervous anymore, but you build through things. But the idea was, aren't you nervous to do these things? Aren't you nervous to perform? You're a wrestler and you're out on a wrestling mat. Are you nervous to perform in front of people? You're a dancer and you're out there performing. Are you nervous? You're a singer. You know, my daughter does musical instrument. And is she nervous? Yeah, we all get nervous at times. And maybe not as much as other people, but guess what? Just because you're nervous doesn't mean you don't do it. Get up and do it. And so, like, this old meme or video I think I saw one time was, public speaker says to, well, how could you do that? How can you get up and speak in front of 10,000 people? Well, you just do it. And what happens when you're nervous? You do it nervous. What happens when you're sick? You do it sick. What happens when, you're not feeling well? Oh, then you do it when you're not feeling well. What happens when you're not prepared? Well, then you do it unprepared. Or you prepare yourself next time. Like, these are things that we have to start doing in our lives to better our lives. We have to do things even when we don't want to do them. And again, go back to relationships here. This man, what he said to me was, he said, when you first meet someone, within the first week of knowing them, you will learn 5 stories from them. And those 5 stories will be the 5 highlights of their life. Most people have 5 things to share that are highlights of their life that were really important to them. And they will share them with you in the first week of meeting someone. And I always thought about that. I'm like, is that true? Like, no. And then you find people really do. They will share with you if you become connected with someone or you meet someone, whether it's a friend, whether it's a girlfriend, boyfriend, whoever, you will find out 5 really interesting facts about their life. Like, somebody will tell you if, like, oh yeah, I almost got eaten by an alligator once, which I almost did. But they will tell you those things. And it's interesting because you will learn more about that person in those 5 things than you will about probably all that small talk that's going on for those first couple of dates that you're going on. So I just find that really interesting. So look for those 5 important things. Now, I think people that are really interesting have way more than that. So when they give you 5 stories about their life or they give you more stories, great, they're interesting. So when you're sitting down at a first date and you're having these conversations and you're trying to learn from someone and you're trying to see if you're connecting to them, you're going to see how you interact with each other. Are you a good listener? Are you a good speaker? Are you somebody that can communicate? Are you listening? Are you eye contact? Are you hearing what I'm saying? Are you relaying back to what I said so I know you're listening? Like, this is called good communication. And when you feel someone's generally interested in you, then it becomes a connection and you're hoping that you get a second date and you're hoping to move forward. And we obviously know that most dates start with physical attraction and then it leads to some sort of connection where, are we on the same page? Are we compatible? So I think that when you're looking at this big picture of men versus women, I think that we want to look at this idea of saying, hey, I want to make sure that I'm giving my part, you're giving your part, and then we're deciding if we want to continue this on. But think about that concept one more time before I move on here. The 5 things that someone brings to the table. Think about your partner, think about your wife, think about your husband, think about whoever it is you're dating or you're with, or dates that you went on. Think about the stories they told. 5 amazing stories about their life that tell a lot about who they are, right? So that's just interesting. Anyway, moving forward, so I will say one more thing about the dating scene here, and then I'm going to move forward with men versus women. I think I made my point clear where men are a lot of physical. They want to feel the concept that they're being needed or they're wanted in a first date, a second date. They want to feel that you're interested. So somehow show them men want to know that you're listening to them, that you are compatible, that you guys are on the same wavelength, that you can laugh, that you guys can bring safety to them emotionally, that you can bring safety to them physically, those kind of things. So this is, again, my perspective of this. But I want to talk about one more thing about the actual sexual content of dating. I'm a big believer in this, and I came across this, but women, I would suggest this to you every step of the way. And I came across this, and it was a 5-date minimum. I will say this as men, and I'm kind of throwing this out there, and men, I mean, they want sex. I think that's given. They're physical creatures. Men are physical creatures by nature. But to have respect is so much more important to men. Men need respect from women, and women need love, right? So if you're truly interested in a person, I mean, there could be a sexual attraction that's amazing, right? That maybe defeats all of these rules. But I would say women start with this 5-date rule. And that means 5 actual going out dates, not 5 times you talked on the phone. You should be talking on the phone anyway. You should be texting. You should be doing the things throughout. But 5 actual dates where you guys go out and you spend some time together, get to know each other. After 5 dates, then you make that decision. You don't have to do it on date 5. You don't have to do it on date 6. But the idea is, if you are somebody that is wanting a physical connection or physical relationship with someone, and I know a lot of people don't believe in premarital sex and those things, and if that's the case, then obviously you're not going to have sex anyway. But The idea being is wait your 5 dates and make a decision then. Is this a person that I could see myself with or whatever? Because here's the thing. As much as I'm a man, I like sex as well, but the concept is I want to respect you. So if you're going to have sex with me on the first date or second date or even third date, I'm probably going to lose some respect for you. Now, you can earn that respect back. I understand that. But a lot of times what ends up happening is we lose respect because we think that you've done that for everyone else. And if you've done that for me, you might have done that for everyone else. And see, we want to be unique. So thinking from a man's perspective here, women, we want to be the only one. We want to be your first and your last and all the things. And we're probably not going to be your first. But here's the thing. If you are somebody that gives away your gift, as I call it, women have a gift. There is a power amongst women, their bodies. There is a power amongst this whole world. Anyone that denies that is a fool. To understand this world is kind of run by women and sex and the concept of that love. The idea is this. If you look back at this and you give it away, that means you lose some of your worth. So hold on to your worth until you're ready to make that. You wait too long, who knows if men will be around? I don't know. I don't want to get into that idea, but they may not. And maybe they're not worth it then. But the idea becomes is men need physical, but men can also wait if it's something that's worth waiting for. So put that perspective out there. Women also, I want you to think about this. Just because you're going to hold off or you're there holding their hand, touching them, kissing them, these are things that hold on to, hey, I have this connection with you and I want to learn more about you. I want to learn an emotional connection with you because you're showing me that you care about me. So put those two things together, understand, hold on to your worth as long as you feel it's necessary. I like the 5-date rule. I like that time goes by. Usually in 5 dates are going through at least a few weeks, if not a month, into knowing this person and really getting to understand them. If that is the case, you might have a better relationship that lasts a little bit longer. So you have respect that comes from that. Again, man's perspective, my perspective. So I just want to kind of look at you there. Now, if there is an uncanny physical attraction that can't go with the 5, then it's your choice. I mean, I've made the choice. I've made other choices. So you got to look back at it and say to yourself, what's best for you? But if you're literally just waiting because if it's a checklist, I never look at checklists, but at least give yourself enough time to make those decisions. So moving on, I have 4 things before I end this. 4 statements that are here, and you can really ponder on these statements. I want you to take a listen to these statements of what people think and what a generalization is, and then we'll discuss real quick and move on, and I won't let this last much longer. So number 1, men try to change women's feelings men try to change women's feelings and women try to change men's behavior. Think about that. So if you think about that concept that you're changing what a woman feels, if you're a man and a woman is changing what a man's behavior is, how does that affect a relationship? How does that working together to come to, a solution or come to a common understanding to be able to move forward in a relationship instead of push back, right? So I'll finish reading these 2 explanations of that. Men try to change women's feelings by offering solutions to her problems. When men are active listening to their partners, they're primarily concerned with coming up with a solution. Yet women only expect empathy, to be listened to and to be understood. Women try to change men's behavior by offering advice and criticism. Even in cases where their intentions are good, men feel undermined and criticized. Instead, men desire that their partner accepts them as they are and trusts them to solve the problems. That's a big part right there. Men are problem solvers. They're constantly wanting to solve the problem. Women want to be heard. They want to be understood. They want to be listened to. So there's got to be a give and take there. So instead of just always fixing the problem, men, we have to take a step back and we have to say, okay, sometimes women are going to tell us their feelings and they just want to be understood. They're not asking for you to fix the problem. Women, sometimes you give this advice and this criticism, and sometimes men don't want that because they feel like they're not good enough. So there is a big understanding here that we have to go back to and realize that men are very logical, right, wrong, fix a problem. Women are very emotional and they act on emotions, their feelings. So we have to look at both of these things and say, well, how do we come to a common understanding here? Men, you have to start listening to your partners and saying, hey, if you're emotional, I realize my partner is going to be emotional and they're going to react in emotional manners. I have to approach things differently. This is called the concept of your delivery. I have a hard time on it sometimes. Your delivery and your tone. Sometimes those things affect the feelings and emotions of women. And women, you have to realize men are very logical. If they say the sky is blue, the sky is blue. Not, oh no, it's probably blue green, and then there's an argument, and then there's a rebuttal, and all that. We don't want that. We're telling you what we're feeling. We're telling you directly what we're feeling. We don't play our game, our feelings are wish-washy, which usually I feel this, and we tell you directly. That's a very we use examples, we use facts. The fact is you said this. You said these exact words. This is a fact. This is logic, And the problem becomes is we argue over semantics in everything. Semantics will never do a relationship well. It's ruined relationships. It's ruined relationships I've been in. And so when I look at it, we have to start looking at both different perspectives here. So I'll move on. Men crave to feel needed. Women crave to feel cherished. The more a man feels needed in a relationship, the more he is willing to give. Men need to feel that they are trusted, accepted, and accepted in their love relationship. And when they don't, they become less motivated and more selfish. A man's greatest fear is that he's not good enough for the woman he loves. That is true. Men feel that. They want to feel good enough. They want to feel the only one. They want to feel no other men exist, just them. They want to feel that they are loved so much that you don't want to live life without them. I feel that. I know that's what most men feel like. They don't want anyone else to come in between your circle. Women need to feel that they are cherished in their relationships. When they feel their actions are appreciated and they are respected, they are willing to give more. On the other hand, when they feel their efforts are not appreciated, they become consumed and exhausted. They soon start to feel resentment and frustration toward their partner. They will hide and will go silent. So that pullback, that resentment, that kills relationships. That hide, that silence kills relationships. The concept of wanting to feel respected and appreciated, you need that. Men, you should always be respectful and appreciative of what you have there. I think Tony Robbins says it best, and he comes out and he says, this idea of let's stop with all the expectations. When you walk into things with expectations, you're bound to be let down. Instead of having huge expectations, let's change it with gratitude. Let's take expectations out and let's remove it and add in gratitude in its place. You're always, I don't know if he says this or not. I disagree if he says that you can go into relationships without any expectations. I believe there's always going to be expectations in any relationship you're involved in. If we're just friends or I just meet or coworkers or even dating someone, there are expectations that you're going to be respectful. There are expectations that you're going to respect my boundaries or my non-negotiables. There are expectations that exist. Now, if you have expectations on every single detail, you are going to be set up for failure. You have to limit the expectations and be grateful for what you do have. If you're in a relationship for a while, you better be grateful for what she does bring to the table, men. You better show appreciation for her making you dinner or making you lunches or, taking care of your body as far as massaging or whatever the case is. And women, you should be doing the same. So those two things are really apparent to me. Men do need to feel needed. Women do need to feel cherished, that they're appreciated. Those are huge. And then we get to number 3. Men most often know what they want, yet they're not always sure how they feel. Women most often know how they feel, yet they may not always know what they want. I'm not going to comment too much on that. I think that there's an age-old argument that women never know what they want. And then there's an age-old argument that men are not always sure about how they feel. Like those kind of arguments come into play. They know what they want. Men know what they want. That's a given. Problem is, are you searching for more than what is good enough? Is there always a search for more? That's a problem in relationships in general, men and women. I was on a date one time and this woman said to me that I love dating apps. And I said, really? And she said, yeah, because you can always go on there and look for better. I was like, well, this date's over. So if you go on a date with a good person and you find someone that's a good person and then you're still looking for someone better than that person, you're never going to be happy in life. You should be looking for core values. You should be looking for that connection we're talking about here, whether it's both physical and emotional. But if you're always going to look for better, then you're going to be single dating forever. Anyway, let's move on to the last one. And the last one says, men desire to give, women to receive. Man is always looking for someone to boast to. Women are always looking for a shoulder to put their head on. That's a pretty cool quote. I mean, is it true? Do you believe in that? When it comes to nurturing love, women need many expressions of love from their partner in order to feel fulfilled and loved. Men don't often realize how important little gestures of love are for women and mistakenly assume that a major gesture of love can replace them. So are men going to only do one big gesture of love, or are they going to do small things? I believe in the small things. I think every partner should be doing small things that lead to big things. If you're only doing big things once in a great while, you're going to feel that loss of appreciation. Women are feeling that. Men, wake up. Small things add up. Bring flowers when it's not expected. Write a little note. Tell them how you feel. Open up. Be vulnerable. Text. Send memes. Whatever the case is, do the small things. Listen to what they love and actually do it. Those things add up. On the other hand, men need to feel appreciated for their gestures. When they feel they are taken for granted, they stop giving. Men feel loved when they feel supported and appreciated. The best way to show a man you love him is by showing support and appreciation instead of giving advice or criticism. Well, I mean, we kind of heard that from both ends. Women feel that same way. They want to feel appreciated. Men feel they want to feel appreciated. I mean, it gives you a common understanding that both people want to be appreciated. They don't want to do things and not feel appreciated. Now, that doesn't mean I did something so you should be worshiping the ground I walk on. No, that means just acknowledge and show reciprocation. Thanks for doing this for me. And then maybe the next time you did something nice for them. Whatever the case is, these two things do kind of make sense to me. Do men want to boast too? Yeah, I mean, maybe men are looking to boast to their women. Maybe women just need that support, that emotional support. Let me put my head on your shoulder, take care of me, make me feel safe. I hear it, I understand it. Men, if you're listening to this, please listen to some of these little things that can help. They help relationships. Don't get so complacent in your life, in your relationship, in your marriage, wherever you're at, that you stop doing little things that show your partner you care for them. Smack them on the ass when they walk by. I'm sorry, women, but that shows a physical touch that men are desiring you still. I know for a fact that you want to feel desired. I know that. Men feel it. You grab a man's hand or you put your hand on his shoulder or you rub his head. He feels desired. He feels wanted. The fact that you initiate any sexual encounter is huge. When women initiate, men feel like kings. When women, get those special little tiny things showing that you love them, they feel like queens. Like, this concept comes into play. We have to start looking at both sides of this, what women think, what men think. So I'm going to wrap this all up. I know that this kind of went on. I kind of spent a few minutes talking a little bit about my business and jumping into those things because I really do want to help people. I really hope that people get perspective from this podcast. I really hope that people understand that the whole reason for doing this is that my kingdom is about me building myself up. And then it's me creating an environment where my kingdom gets better and they're built up. So if you're part of my kingdom, or if you're listening to this, I consider you part of my kingdom because you're listening to this. The idea would be this: you can disagree and you can argue and you don't have to. I've had those conversations with people that listen to this podcast. I'm okay with that. I'm not okay if you disagree and, you're not going to be open to any perspective. Be open. I'm going to be open to anyone else's perspective. I'm going to listen to them and go, okay, I get it. I get why you would feel this way. I get that you don't agree with this. But be open to perspective, because perspective is the only way that we grow any of our thoughts and this narrative that we create. I listen to your perspective. I listen to your words, and then I hear you, and maybe I take some of it, and maybe I still only think my perspective is right, but maybe I take a little bit of what you said and go, yeah, that makes sense. I'm going to add that to my perspective. Now I just grew. If I'm in an argument, I'm going to win those arguments if I'm listening to your perspective for understanding and you're not listening to mine for understanding. I win. I understand where you're coming from now and you don't understand where I'm coming from. I listened for understanding. So think about those little things. Men versus women, again, I'm not trying to hurt anyone's feelings. I do believe in these things. I do believe the small things count. I do believe that if you understood where men come from and what they feel and what women come from and what they feel, and again, I'm not always right and I'm not always, you might be a totally different woman than the generalization or what I generalize, and men, you might be different as well. But if you take a little bit of what's being said here, you might be able to make some connections to your own experiences and say, hey, you know what? I remember sitting on a date and this is what happened. I remember this guy thought I wasn't interested because I didn't give anything and he never called me again. Whatever the case is, women, this man shut down and he didn't communicate well and we couldn't find anything in common. These are things that happen, and this is why people don't go on second dates and get to know one another. So I really hope that you took something from this podcast. This is, I think podcast number 5 in this series about relationships. I think I'm going to try to wrap it all up on relationships. We can talk forever on this. We'll probably bring up relationships many times again, but I'm going to wrap it all up with this acronym that I've come up with about relationships. I think that this, if you listen to some of the things that are being said here in these podcasts, and we wrap it all up next week, what you'll find is if you think back to this acronym I'll give you next week, and you start thinking about how I can better my relationship, and am I doing all these things? Am I looking in the mirror? Am I doing all of these parts to building a relationship? If I am, and my partner is doing the same, we're going to be good. If one of us is doing it and the other one isn't, there's a failure. So I hope that you understood the concept of effort, the concept of communication with understanding, your purpose, your God, your love for God. The concept of love languages is always about learning your partner. And then today, learning more about your partner, men versus women in their approach, their thought process, men being physical creatures, women being emotional creatures. And how do we do both of those things? Because I believe we're both. It's just how it starts. Men start physical, women start emotional. How do we get that to collide to become something that is a connection? I'll let you go from here. We will be back for next week's podcast. Please keep following someone, pass it on to someone, have someone listen to, share. I appreciate everyone that does. Thank you for listening. Talk to you next week.